$45. That is what I used to hand over for one bag of premium lawn fertilizer, and I bought 4 of them every single season. Do the quick math. Almost $200 a year, poured straight onto grass that still turned yellow and thin by the middle of August. It is a warm Saturday morning in May. Coffee in my hand, dew still sitting on the blades. I am walking my own lawn, and for about 10 seconds it looks perfect. Deep green, thick, the kind of lawn that makes a neighbor slow down. Then I crouch near the edge of my driveway, and I see it. The green is already fading at the tips, and the soil underneath my fingers is pale, dusty, and hard as a brick. The villain in this story is the garden aisle. That bright bag with the 4 big numbers on the front and the promise that this time it will finally work. For years, I trusted that bag more than I trusted my own 2 eyes. Here is the frustration that haunted me every year. I would feed the lawn, watch it explode green for 2 weeks, feel like a genius, then watch it crash. Every summer, the same yellow patches came back in the same spots. Same money spent, same dead grass in July. And I will be honest with you, I was doing 3 things wrong, and you are probably doing them too. I was dumping fast synthetic nitrogen on the surface. I was bagging up my clippings and dragging them to the curb. And I was watering to fix a problem that watering could never fix. Nothing changed year after year because I was treating the symptom and starving the cause. So let me ask you something that stopped me cold the first time I really thought about it. What if the greenest, thickest lawns you have ever seen were never touched by a single grain of that store fertilizer? Because they exist. I have driven past them. Plain farms worked by families who have never once walked down a garden aisle. Their pastures and yards stay green through heat that fries mine, and they spend almost nothing to keep them that way. In this video, I am going to show you exactly why their lawns never need store fertilizer, and I am going to break it into 2 parts. The first is what is really happening in your soil when you feed it from a bag. The second is what these traditional growers spread instead and how you copy it for a few dollars. And I am holding back one final thing for the end. It is the single practice that keeps their lawns feeding themselves forever. The thing they spread that costs almost nothing. And it is the entire reason I made this video. I am not going to name it yet, but it changed my whole yard. Let me start with part 1. The mistake that quietly drains your wallet and your soil at the same time. Because this is the one almost every homeowner makes, myself included, for years. Here is the surprising part. When I fed my lawn from that bag, I was not feeding my lawn at all. I was feeding it a drug. Watch what you instinctively do. You see pale grass, you reach for nitrogen, you spread it, and within days, the lawn goes electric green. It feels logical. It feels like proof that it worked. And I believed that proof for a decade. But here is what is actually happening beneath your feet. Most people think that green flush is the grass getting healthy. What is actually happening is the grass is getting a sugar rush. Fast synthetic nitrogen is water soluble, which means the plant gulps it down in one huge hit. It grows blades so fast, it cannot build roots to match. So you get tall, soft, thin-walled grass sitting on a shallow, weak root system. It looks great for 2 weeks. Then the nitrogen washes out, and the lawn crashes harder than before. And it gets worse under the surface. That salty synthetic hit actually drives away the earthworms and starves the soil microbes, the tiny living things that are supposed to feed your grass for free. Research from agricultural extension programs has measured this. A healthy teaspoon of living soil holds up to 1 billion bacteria and yards of fungal threads, and those organisms are the real fertilizer factory. When you soak the ground in quick salts, you knock that factory offline. So the next month the grass is even more addicted to the bag because the free feeding system is dead. That was my lawn. Green, crash, yellow, repeat. I was not building a lawn. I was renting one, 4 bags at a time. So here is the reframe that flipped everything for me. Your grass does not eat fertilizer. Your soil eats, and then your soil feeds the grass. Feed the soil, and the grass takes care of itself. Once I understood that, the fixes were almost embarrassingly simple, and they started at $0. The first and cheapest thing I did was stop bagging my clippings. I had been throwing away my best free fertilizer at the curb every single week. Grass clippings are almost 4% nitrogen by dry weight, and they break down fast right where they fall. Extension studies found that leaving your clippings returns as much as 1/4 of your lawn's entire yearly nitrogen need for free. That is 1 bag of fertilizer a year you never have to buy again just by taking the bagger off your mower. And no, clippings do not cause thatch. That is a myth I believe too. They are mostly water and they melt back into the soil within a couple of weeks. The second thing was raising my mower. I used to scalp my lawn short because I thought it meant fewer mowings. What I was really doing was starving the roots of the shade they need. I set my blade to 3 inches, and I never cut more than 1/3 of the blade at a time. Taller grass grows deeper roots, shades out weed seeds, and holds moisture in the soil during heat. That one adjustment did more for my summer color than any bag ever did. Here is what is really at stake if you ignore this. Keep feeding fast salts and scalping short, and you are locking yourself into paying $200 a year forever to keep a shallow, thirsty lawn on life support. It will never bounce back on its own because you never let it build the roots to try. But cutting your losses is only half of it. Stopping the damage does not rebuild what the bag already stripped out. And that is exactly the gap those traditional families figured out generations ago, long before any of these products existed. Which brings me to part 2. If they never buy fertilizer, then something is putting real, lasting fertility back into that ground. And what they spread is a completely different category from anything in the store. This is where I stopped patching my lawn and actually started rebuilding it. The thesis here is blunt. Store fertilizer feeds the plant for a month. What these growers spread feeds the soil for years. And the universal mistake almost everyone makes is thinking those two things do the same job. They do not. One is a quick meal. The other is a bank account that pays you back every season. Let me give you the methods from the cheapest floor to the one a professional grower would reach for. Method 1 is aged manure. And this is the classic. When people picture what a farm spreads, they picture manure. And they are right. But here is the detail that matters. The one that separates success from a burned, stinking mess. It has to be aged or composted, never fresh. Fresh manure is so high in raw ammonia and salts that it will scorch your grass yellow and brown, the same burn you get from too much synthetic nitrogen. I learned that the hard way on a back corner of my yard, and it took the rest of the summer to recover. Here is the mechanism. When manure sits and composts for at least 6 months, the raw nitrogen stabilizes and binds to carbon. That means it releases slowly over months, exactly matching the pace the grass can actually use. Well, aged cow or horse manure runs low and gentle, often under 1% nitrogen, but it is loaded with organic matter and living microbes. It is not a drug hit. It is a slow, steady drip that never crashes. You spread a thin 1/4-inch layer over the lawn in early spring or fall, rake it so the grass blades poke through, and let the rain carry it down. A pickup load of aged manure from a local farm often costs less than a single bag of the fancy stuff, and it covers far more ground. Before I show you what these families spread instead, let me stop for a second, because everything you just learned about feeding the soil is exactly what one collection lays out from start to finish. Picture yourself next spring, standing over that same pale, dusty, brick-hard patch by the driveway, wishing someone had handed you the whole plan instead of piecing it together over 10 wasted seasons like I did. That is exactly what the complete Amish Yard Field Edition is. It is the full, permanent version of everything I am showing you here. Inside, the Amish Lawn Guide walks you through why your lawn keeps failing and why it is not your fault. And it hands you a homemade fertilizer protocol that feeds the soil, not a bag. The Amish Soil Guide takes you further, with precision soil testing beyond the basic pH strip and a homemade fertilizer system built to outperform store-bought bags. It is every proven natural method, no synthetic inputs, no contractor fees, no guesswork, in one system that lands as an instant PDF in your email. And here is a check you can run for free tonight, right now. Walk out with a flashlight, push your finger into your worst yellow spot, and see if the soil is pale and dusty instead of dark and crumbly. If it is, that is the dead factory I described, and it is proof the bag was never feeding your soil. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And the reason to start now is simple, honest timing. The natural methods work with the real seeding windows of spring and fall. So the sooner you know your soil, the sooner it wakes up. But here is the thing that surprised me most, and I saved it for last, because there is one more thing these families spread that costs almost nothing. All right, back to the yard, because now I want to give you the actual methods those families use. Method 2 is compost, and this is the version I settled on because it is cleaner and easier to handle in a normal neighborhood. Compost is just organic matter that has already been broken down by microbes into dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling material. When you top dress your lawn with a 1/4 inch of finished compost, you are not really adding food, you are adding the workforce. Every handful is packed with the bacteria and fungi that unlock the nutrients already sitting in your soil, the ones the salt washed out. Extension trials have shown that a single 1/4 inch compost top dressing spread once a year can match the greening you get from synthetic feeding, but without the crash, and it keeps improving the soil every year instead of degrading it. You can make it free from kitchen scraps and leaves, or buy it in bulk for a fraction of bagged fertilizer. Method 3 is wood ash, and this is the one that felt like a genuine secret when I first tried it. These families burn wood all winter for heat, and they never throw the ashes away, they spread them. Wood ash is one of the oldest soil amendments in recorded history, used for centuries before any factory made fertilizer. Here is why it works. Wood ash is rich in potassium, the nutrient that toughens grass against drought and cold and disease, and it is also full of calcium that sweetens sour, acidic soil. If your lawn is mossy, weak, and growing in ground that has gone acidic from years of those salty feeds, a light dusting of wood ash raises the pH and puts back the minerals the bag never contained. But you must go light. A thin scattering, no more than a couple of pounds per 100 square feet in a year, and never on soil that is already alkaline. Too much will swing your pH too far the other way. Now, let me be very clear about why this whole category beats the bag. Store fertilizer gives you nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. 3 numbers and nothing else. Aged manure, compost, and ash give you those nutrients, plus organic matter, plus living microbes, plus a dozen trace minerals, and they rebuild the soil structure so it holds water instead of shedding it. Most people fertilize to make grass grow. What these growers are actually doing is making soil that grows grass on its own. That is the whole difference. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. If this is already changing how you look at that bag in your garage, do me one favor and subscribe right now. This channel is for people who want the mechanism nobody explains in the garden aisle, the why underneath the what. That is all we do here. Subscribe and stay with me, because the next part is the one I held back, and it is the best thing I know about lawns. Because here is what I noticed. Even after I switched to compost and clippings and ash, I was still doing the spreading. Every spring, every fall, me in a wheelbarrow. And these traditional lawns did not seem to need constant tending. Something was feeding them continuously on its own without anyone lifting a shovel. It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out what it was, and it was growing right in front of me the whole time. So let me give you part 3. Prevention. This is the sealed answer. The single thing these families spread that keeps their lawns feeding themselves forever, and it is the reason store fertilizer never enters the picture. It is clover, white Dutch clover, spread right into the lawn, living side by side with the grass. Now stay with me, because I know that for years I was taught clover is a weed. That belief is exactly the trick, and I will show you why in a second. First, the mechanism, because this is the beautiful part. Clover is a legume, and legumes do something grass simply cannot. On their roots, they form little nodules that house bacteria, and those bacteria pull nitrogen straight out of the air and lock it into the soil in a form your grass can eat. This is called nitrogen fixation, and it is the closest thing to magic in the whole plant world. Clover manufactures fertilizer out of thin air 24 hours a day and drips it into the ground right next to your grass roots for free. Measured over a season, white clover can fix somewhere between 100 and 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre. That is more nitrogen than I was ever buying in those $45 bags. And it never crashes, never burns, and never washes away because it is released slowly and biologically exactly when the grass needs it. Here is the traditional knowledge that got buried. Before the 1950s, clover was a standard prized ingredient in almost every quality lawn seed mix sold in America and Britain. A little clover in the lawn was the sign of a rich, healthy yard. Then the chemical companies released the first broadleaf weed killers, and those sprays killed clover along with the dandelions. So, to sell the new weed killers, the industry rebranded clover as a weed. They taught 2 generations that the very plant feeding their lawns for free was something to poison. And once the clover was gone, the nitrogen it made for free was gone too, which meant you suddenly needed to buy nitrogen in a bag. That is not an accident. That is a product being created by destroying the free alternative. The method could not be simpler, and you can do it this weekend. You buy white Dutch clover seed, which runs only a few dollars a pound, and 1 pound covers a lot of ground because the seed is tiny. You mix it right into your lawn, or scatter it over thin areas at a rate of about 2 ounces per 1,000 square feet. You do it in spring or early fall when the soil is around 50 to 60 degrees. You rake lightly, keep it damp for 2 weeks, and it takes hold. From that point on, it seeds itself and comes back year after year. You have installed a permanent living fertilizer factory into your yard that asks for nothing. What does that save you? For me, it was that entire $200 a year gone, plus the 10 or 12 hours I used to spend spreading and watering to fix the crashes. And my lawn stays green deeper into the drought than it ever did because clover roots reach down and stay lush when grass alone goes brown. So let me match this to your yard quickly so you know where to start. If you are on a tight budget and just want to stop wasting money, start today with the free stuff. Leave your clippings and raise your mower to 3 inches. If your soil is worn out, hard, and dead from years of the bag, top dress with a 1/4 inch of compost this fall to bring the life back. If your ground has gone acidic and mossy, add a light dusting of wood ash. And if you want the lawn that feeds itself forever, the one those farm families quietly rely on, overseed with white clover and never buy nitrogen again. Now, here is the new problem you are going to hit, and I would rather warn you now than let it surprise you. Once you stop the synthetic feeding and start building living soil, your lawn will grow slower and steadier, which is good, but in the first season you may see the old thin spots take a little time to fill in while the soil wakes back up. That waiting stage is where most people panic and run back to the bag and undo everything. If you are staring at a thin or patchy lawn right now and you are worried about that gap, leave me a comment with just the word patchy and tell me your grass type. I read them, and I am building the next video specifically around closing those bare spots fast the natural way without a single bag of synthetic feed. Because here is what I finally understood, standing in my own yard with that cold coffee. Nobody stole my time and money with force. They just quietly convinced me to poison the free thing that was trying to feed my lawn all along. That knowledge was never lost. Someone kept using it the whole time, and now you have it too. Subscribe so you do not miss that next one, because the patchy spots are the first thing that will test your nerve, and I'm going to show you exactly how to win. I'm still crouched in that yard with you, so here's where we go next. Inside the Amish garden circle, I pick up right where this video stopped. You can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing it alone. Thousands of old ways gardeners like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime. Now that your grass can thrive without store-bought help, let me show you how to win the war on weeds the old Amish way. No harsh sprays, just simple methods that truly work. That video's starting right here.